Hello, hope you're having a wonderful day. We are reading in the book of Matthew, chapter 14. We're going to read the first 12 verses. Remember that we're reading for context. We're reading to understand what's being said, what's happening, for the context of what's here, and then how we can apply that to ourselves. Okay, and I'll try to keep the screen on the appropriate verses. If you have your own Bible that you want to follow along with, you can. If you want to just listen, you can listen. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of times I'm working and I listen to things on YouTube or other audio things. So, all right, the book of Matthew, chapter 14, going to read the first 12 verses. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard about the fame of Jesus, and he said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead. That is why these miraculous powers are at work in him." For Herod had seized John and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." I want to pause there for a moment. Herod had taken his brother's wife. See, he had taken his brother's wife as his own, and what's the right word? What they're saying here is that he had taken his brother's wife, but it's not like his brother was dead. He had just taken his brother's wife. You know what I mean? So that's definitely not a good thing, and they would have viewed this much as we would as that's not a morally correct thing to do. And John the Baptist was outspoken and just told him that, hey, you're in the wrong. You shouldn't do that. You should not be taking your brother's wife. So I'm going to continue with verse 5 there. And though he wanted to put him to death, Herod wanted to put John the Baptist to death, he feared the people because they held him, John the Baptist, to be a prophet. But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias, now note that's not Herod's daughter, it's the daughter of the woman he had taken, she danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter." And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he commanded it to be given. So this is a very clear example of, why you do not want to take oaths. You don't want to be rash. I mean, not that we would be in a position or be necessarily as bad a person as Herod is painted to be here, but just because, it's still a good example of, hey, we shouldn't be making promises that we don't intend to keep or we don't mean. We shouldn't be, we should be honest about things, but not, here they were. This happened probably at a kind of a celebration, and there was probably drinking, and it was a rash oath that he made without really thinking about it. Not that that doesn't really clear us of that. We're still responsible, and we should be, aware of what we're saying, what we're going to do at all times. And so anyway, so he was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, because he did this in front of people and he had to keep his word, he commanded it to be given. He sent and had John beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples, this is John the Baptist's disciples, his disciples came and took the body and buried it, and they went and they told Jesus. So, like I said, plainly, this was a case of someone doing wrong in the public eye. Everyone saw it and knew it. John the Baptist actually spoke out, and he had already imprisoned John the Baptist. Herod had already put him in prison. Probably it was, too much, too embarrassing to him supposedly being a man of power and the ruler in this area. He was the ruler under Rome, because this was the days when Rome controlled this area. So they allowed him to rule that area. And here They were probably at some, let's see, celebration. Oh, it was his birthday. It was his birthday celebration. So here they are. They're probably drinking and having some sort of party. And, and this girl dances. Now, we don't know for sure. It doesn't say, but it was probably some sort of risque dance or something for the times. And he promised to give her whatever she wanted without thinking about it, and probably under the influence at the time too, but still, we're responsible for what we say and what we promise and what we say we're going to do. And no doubt her and her mother held him to it. Now, her mother was, her mother was his brother's wife, and he had taken her, so that's another thing that's not a good thing. So Herod got himself into trouble here just by following his own thought and wisdom, and thinking that he could just, he was the ruler and he could do whatever. And here he made this oath, and he didn't want to kill John the Baptist because he was afraid of. He was afraid, on some level, he was afraid of God, and he did not want to kill a prophet of God. Now, this story, you have to remember, is kind of a little bit of a past, because at the very beginning of chapter 14, it says, "At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard about the fame of Jesus, and he said to his servants, 'This is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead, and that is why these miraculous powers are at work in him.'" Well, see, this is after the rest of the chapter had occurred, where he had John beheaded. Now he hears of Jesus, and Jesus came along very shortly. He would have heard of Jesus' fame because John the Baptist had baptized Jesus. He would have heard of Jesus probably not long after, And here he hears of Jesus and the miracles happening, and he thinks, oh, this is John the Baptist come back from the dead, and that's why he has these powers. Now, why he would think coming back from the dead would necessarily give you powers, I don't know. Maybe he was just thinking, that he was, since he was a prophet of God, that God had raised him from the dead and given him more power. I don't know what he thought, but he was actually, I think, scared. So, and probably for those times it was valid to be scared of that, because John the Baptist was a prophet of God, and I think he kind of knew it. Even though he imprisoned him, he didn't want to kill him, but then he made that mistake, and then he felt like he had to, and he did it. So he felt, I guess, backed into a corner by his own oaths, and we should just be aware of that and not do that ourselves as far as the oaths go. Okay, so that's the first 12 verses of this. This is about the death of John the Baptist and how Herod reacted to that. It might also give us some insight on how Herod will act in the future and why he was the way he was. How much insight, I don't know, but maybe it will give us some idea, and we can reference this again. Okay? All right, so I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to come back, and we'll continue. We'll pick up with this chapter. I'm trying to break these into nice little pieces where we are taking relevant parts of the chapters and discussing them, and then we take a break and we come back and do the next section, so that we don't get overwhelmed or have too much of a big long session. So trying to make the sessions short so it's easier for you to just listen to one, and then maybe you need to do something, and then you come back and listen to another. So all right, so thanks for listening, and God bless you.